All right, we got Brad Bald on today, the Jim Morris Show, and I'm super excited. Brad and I, 2 years now, we've been
I think so.
friends.
It feels like so much longer.
It does, it does. And a funny story before we jump in, and we're gonna get into a ton of amazing stuff, but real quick, funny story. I was at a real estate awards convention, and there was a room of maybe 800, 900 people, and I think you were wearing that jacket. And I just saw, I'm like, man, there's someone taller than me in the room. And he looks better than me. God damn it. So I initially was envious of Brad. And then a mutual friend set us up for a coffee 3 days later. I didn't know who Brad was. And I walked in and I was like, damn, it's that taller than me guy
that's
again.
hilarious.
And then we
I
hit it
forgot
off
about that story.
in 30 minutes. And I think we're best friends since.
Oh
So,
my gosh. Shout out to Eric
yes.
for linking us together.
Totally.
Well, I remember I told you this story recently, but I was in Vegas and I was there for we were visiting some client properties out there, and Eric calls me. It's like 8:30 in the morning, and I'm like, why is this guy calling me? I'm in Vegas. I'm on semi-vacation. And I texted him. I said, hey, what's going on? Because if somebody calls you and doesn't leave a message, one of my biggest pet peeves, the first question I ask is, why are you even calling? So I send him a text and he writes back right away and he says, hey, I want to talk to you about something real quick. Very, very short. I didn't really understand where he was going. And then we finally get on the phone and he's like, hey, I got this guy. He's amazing. You got to meet him. Turns out it was Mr. Jim Morris. But at the time, networking and connection over text and phone is always hard, especially when you're across the country, of knowing, is this person going to be a real person that you're going to have, in contact with down the road. And you always wonder that. But I go back to seeing myself in Vegas, and I could have very well ignored that phone call. And Jimbo and I would have never been friends. But, thankfully it turned into, we grabbed coffee, hit it off. I showed him our office, and then we became boys ever since. Did a couple of deals together, but mainly we became really close friends.
Totally, man. Totally. So, dude, you transitioned recently to a new job, different company. I know that you took, a few interviews prior to making this decision with the company, and you had some offers and some things that looked really well. And I just want to applaud you for really diving into what your next move is. And what I mean by that, man, is like, you wanted the right culture. It wasn't just about the green pieces of paper. You wanted to be able to do your unique ability. You wanted to be able to bring a different position to commercial real estate and do things like video and content and all the things you're great at. And in that world of commercial real estate, sometimes a lot of companies don't give you those opportunities or kind of live in a realm from 20 years ago. So I just want to applaud you for not jumping right into the next thing that probably produced a lot of revenue and money for you, but really drilling down to understand what is that right move and not the first move or the second move. Let's chat about that, man. Like, that's super impressive to me because I know you got some offers, there was a lot of money there, and you decided to see what else was out there over the next couple of weeks. So let's chat about that, man. Like, that's super impressive, not just diving into the next thing, making sure it's the right fit.
First of all, thank you for saying that, Jimbo. It means a lot. These past few months have been, quite a journey and big transition for me that, looking back now, it was great at times, but it was also tough at times because I was really making a career change. It was within the real estate world, but I knew I wanted to focus solely on commercial real estate. And, being at a small firm doing hybrid residential and commercial real estate, I just continued to fall more and more in love with commercial, and I knew that was the direction I wanted to go to. And coming from a small firm, you learn a lot. You get a lot of hands-on client activity, which you can never take for granted. I'm very, very thankful of that time. Now, I was really looking for a bigger firm or bigger company that I could really, potentially grow. And throughout that journey, when I took some time off to really figure out what I wanted to do, I mean, I was exploring all different options, right? That was corporate jobs, that was non-legal jobs, to really, because I knew when I make this decision, I knew it had to be the right decision. And
Well, you also acquired some knowledge and understanding of what those other opportunities would look like.
exactly.
And I think that's super important because you want to see a big picture of what's available and what fits your unique ability.
100%, right? I wasn't going to be the one that was going to be hid behind a desk and do document review for the rest of my
Oh,
life,
really?
right?
That's not your personality? That doesn't work for you?
I look for, based on my personality, right? Whether it's a company or firm, is energy, enthusiasm. They see the value that I can bring, and it's also a place that I know I can go into work every day being fired up every single day. Now, that's something it's often hard to come by in the legal world.
Did you see the documentary on Air Jordan?
I haven't yet. Now it's on
So
my to-do
it's
list.
funny you talk about energy, and I actually learned this from Russ, a rapper. He talks about energy
Okay.
vampires. And I watched that movie the other day, and like 30 years ago, Phil Knight, right, Shoe Dog, the CEO, whatever, his number 10 or 8 out of their top 10 rules was no energy vampires, energy givers. And it's crazy to me because a company that's grown like that, that's been on a national scale, and it takes a movie 30 years later on Netflix to publish that document and get it out there in the national space. And it's like, man, if I just saw that document 5 years ago, 20 years ago,
Right.
life would be completely different for me because I honestly had a problem with allowing people in my life that sucked energy, resources, money, and provided stress, anxiety, drama. And like now I just don't allow that to come into my world. I refuse it. I'm like, dang, energy vampire, great meeting. Cheers. Wish you best of luck. And that's it. I'm not going to take a meeting. I'm not going to take a phone call. I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to be
Sure.
an ass or any of that, right? But the fact of the matter is I want to surround myself with givers, not takers.
Well, isn't that amazing how powerful one piece of content can be?
That's it.
And, throughout this transition period, I made it a habit to read one book every 1 to 3 days. And by consuming consistent content, positive, uplifting, energizing content, it really changed the way I thought on an everyday basis, right? Because you can wake up, you can, mingle around the house, and where it's so easy for your mind to jump to something negative or something you wish you said, or why did I, take that meeting, or why did I take that much time, out partying, and you can constantly live in that regret mode. And what I learned was just consuming positive, uplifting, energizing content on a daily basis, whether that was my reading or listening to podcasts, journaling, watching YouTube videos, something that's uplifting me. Now, you're not going to not have those negative thoughts on a daily basis. It's about being human, but I try to strategize each and every day by consuming as much of that content as possible, which really changes the way I think now. Because the moment that I have that negative thought, I let it sit with me, but at the same time, I know it's not going to stick with me forever. I know it's going to take some time to get it away, but eventually it does.
It is said that you have 60,000 negative thoughts a day. And one of the biggest things that's changed my life is understanding that you cannot have a negative and a positive thought at the same time. So what do? How do you radiate positivity, right? You have a negative thought and you do the opposite. You trick your brain into thinking about something nice. I have 5 things that I often go to when I'm having a negative thought that I know are going to spin me back in a positive trajectory. And those 5 things are super important to me. Those are the things that wake me up in the morning. Those are the things that, I spend extra time on, the things I care about. Honestly, the 5 things that define my happiness. And guess what, dude? Money ain't one of those 5. Money ain't one of those 5.
Amazing?
And you talk about all those people with the 5S, faith, fortune, friends, family, health, right? All that stuff. For me, wealth and fortune and money is the last of those, because I just realized that that actually doesn't define success
100% agreed.
for me personally.
I'm with you though, because you and I have had this conversation many a times. Is that the money where you try to reach a certain figure, right? Where you think you reach that certain dollar amount, everything's gonna be amazing, right? You made it. But once you get there, you chase something else. So it's this endless chase. And if you can't be content with the way you are as a human, then you're never going to be satisfied. And one thing that's very, very, important to me is, we live in this hustle culture. And I got addicted to that over the past 5.5, 6 years.
I think we all
Going to meetings, closings, networking events. You always want and have this need where you feel you have to be on all the time. And that's stressful and that's exhausting. So, when I made this transition and stepping away from the position, I, for a second, felt a little bit lost, right? Because I didn't have that job that I thought was defining me as a human. So I really had to come back to grips of finding out, all right, who is Brad Bald as a person? What are my values? And start there as a baseline.
Dude.
The job is great. The job is awesome. It's a vehicle to do what you want to do. But if I'm not content and happy with myself every day, then life is just going to be miserable.
And I had a conversation with Eric, who linked us up, and he reminded me, because we didn't sit down for about a year, and we got busy. Right? He's doing his thing. I'm throwing events. We're both doing real estate. He's flipping. Right? All that, right? And we sat down, and he reminded me of a conversation a year ago that I had, where I didn't value who I was, and I was chasing the dollar, and that was just a year ago. And you talked about you kind of felt lost, right? And for me, I did feel lost, and I think the biggest thing that happened to me was I had to lose myself in order to find myself. And realize the negative path I was going down, and then figure out how to change that. And what it really came down to was I was lost because I was equating happiness to the dollar. And that's not why I do things. I do things to help people and to watch them grow and to provide opportunity through networking events and connect and things like that. And it was just amazing to me, but my whole point of talking about that conversation a year ago, when we met this time, he was like, man, I feel like I'm talking to someone completely different.
Such a good feeling.
And I feel completely different. Now, I've made a lot of lifestyle changes in the last year. Don't get me wrong. It's not just mindset. There's a lot of things, right? Haven't had a drink of alcohol in 8 months.
Let's go. I love
nicotine
that.
In 10 months.
Awesome.
Up to my friend group, people who gave me energy instead of taking it away, people who wanted to see me do good instead of jealous, or you can't do that. Again, those negative thoughts, right? So, I mean, for me, it's been game changing, and it's just amazing. And I know, because we're friends and we often have coffee and we check in, it's just amazing again to hear what you went through, because it's quite similar to me. It's just we do it in our own unique ways at our own unique times and go down our own path and, our own race at our own pace.
I know.
That's my new word. That's my new rhyme, man.
Own race at our own pace.
That's it.
Look at you, Jimbo. I love that. Well, one thing I want to touch on, right, that we can dive deep into is I'm impressed with your 8 months without alcohol, because, it was last year or a year and a half ago, I took 6 months and stayed away from alcohol. And I was so proud of myself. It was amazing, but it's not funny and it's not crazy, because a part of our hustle culture, we're around alcohol all the time, right? And it's almost a part of that hustle culture, especially in the legal world, that, you come home, you got to pour yourself a cocktail. You got to make yourself an old fashioned. You got to have a whiskey on the rocks because you had such a tough day.
Work so hard and there's so many problems, and it's like, well, why don't we just fix those problems?
Exactly.
Why don't we change the job?
Right.
Right? Because at the end of the day, alcohol's fun. I love it. Dude, partied my ass off for years.
Sure.
It was amazing. Met a bunch of great people.
Right.
Had great friendships, relationships, all types of things. But at the end of the day, where I'm at in my life, because I now have different responsibilities, is it depletes the energy I have. It depletes my health, and it's just something. I'm not. Maybe I drink again. Maybe I don't.
Right.
But I get to make that decision when it's the
Exactly.
right time for Jim Morris.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of power in that, because now I understand that and have a victory of control, right? I can control all those things. And,
Right.
and I was chatting earlier today about how I wasn't addicted to alcohol, but I think that was the biggest problem, right? Oh, I can quit whenever I want.
Yes.
Which I did. I
Right.
just said, hey, I'm not going to drink ever again in October 1st. I was like, I'm not doing it. It's not worth it.
Yes.
And I just quit.
Right.
But like that psychology of me thinking I could do that actually fucked me up and made me not quit earlier.
100%.
So it's like, let's put pressure on Jim, because Jim always can fight through it and break
Right.
through it. But I never actually applied that pressure. It was just this bullshit in my head. So it's just funny, man. It's crazy.
Once you get to the point where you and I, we're talkative and social humans without an ounce of alcohol. And I think that's special. I think a lot of people in our industry, whether it's the legal profession or real estate, have to have that push of one drink or two drinks to feel social, to feel like they're on. But I find I am the sharpest when I don't drink alcohol. I am more engaging. I'm actually more energetic without alcohol. So I have the opposite effect of drinking, where it is, at the end of the day, alcohol is a depressant. And
I was just going to say.
Right. And even one will make me kind of come down, and then I don't feel like myself. So, going out to networking events, right, whether that was your past networking event or even the dinner at your house, not having an ounce of alcohol made our conversations that much better, right?
Little
It was
sharper,
stimulating.
for sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Because don't get me wrong, if we did have a couple drinks, everything would have been fine.
Oh,
We'd
yeah.
had
There's
good
not
old
a
time.
problem.
No, exactly. But, the content and the substantive nature of our conversations probably would have been a little bit different. So, I think it's true that, okay, you don't have to sit there and wake up and say, I'm never going to drink alcohol ever again. You just say, hey, today I'm not going to. And then you do it. It's like our guy Ed Milet, right, in his book, One More, right? It's just, go live each day saying, who can I be the best version of myself today?
Totally.
Then do that the same thing the next day and the next day and the next day. So back to the alcohol. It's like, okay, if I don't want to have a glass of alcohol today, I'm going to say no today. And then I can make that decision tomorrow.
And I think back to your point about it's almost habitual when you're hustling and you're networking and it's always around you, and you put yourself in a position where it's like, okay, it's awkward to network, right? It's a skill, man. Like, I was terrible at it, and I did use alcohol, and that was my only way to break a circle and provide value. But when I actually sat down and started studying deep connection and how to get on people's level and how to read personalities, right? The event the other week.
Yes.
Like, you really understand. There's a level of confidence now going into that conversation, opposed to not a lot of confidence being masked by alcohol in order to put me in that conversation.
Right.
So it's just a different spin on it. But I think, to your point, is we create those habits of, I'm at a networking event, let me get 2 drinks down. Okay, I'm feeling a little cool, a little loose, maybe shoulders popping on a little rap music. No, just kidding. But,
About to get a little dance routine there, Jimbo.
You're like, okay, 2 down. Good. All right, let's go. Let's talk to some people. And like, man, when I look back at myself and how many networking events that I did that at, it's fucking sad.
Right.
It's just plain out sad.
Well, think about after that event, right? You almost feel like, say you leave the event at 7:30, 8 or 8:30. The night's done, right? You're not being productive. You're not doing work that you had to finish later.
No.
You're not going home and reading. All I want to do is sit down, watch TV, watch a movie, or go on my phone.
That's it.
But I notice, after that event that you had last Thursday with the speaker, Brock, who was fantastic, I was motivated. I had, mental notes in my head where I went home, I continued reading a book, right? I pulled up some podcasts I want to listen to the next day. If I had a couple cocktails, I may have not made that same decision.
Nah, you're surfing the YouTube
Right?
or the TV or, yeah,
And
totally.
we can talk about the addiction to social media, in our world of real estate, because we understand the value it brings, right? It's like, I always hate speaking out on both sides of my mouth, right? Because I do like posting content that showcases the brand, right? I think that's very, very important to it. So every time I'm out there trying to tell somebody, well, take some time off of social media when they go to my page or they go on Instagram, it's a post by me. But I think, I took January to April or May off of social media. And it was the absolute best decision ever because...
So you read a book every 3 days and you weren't on social media. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Right? The amount of productivity that I had. I'm like, I have so much time in my day, you know? And it's 100%, right? Because when you look at your screen time sometimes on your busy days, when you're on social media or when you're posting, because you essentially start to babysit your content of who's engaging, who's commenting, who's liking. That's exhausting in itself. And that was a mental tax for me because I pushed out so much content over the past 5.5, 6 years that I had to look back and say, what am I really doing this for? I mean, if it's so mentally exhausting or the way I utilize it, right? Social media is not the problem. It's the way we utilize it. I think it's the problem. And I got very much addicted to it and I didn't utilize it in the most healthy way possible. So understanding that, okay, it's okay to post, but you can post, as Joe Rogan says, post and ghost. Post the content out there, delete the app for 5 hours. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. Your content's not going anywhere. So I've been trying to mimic, as I've gotten back on social media, try to mimic that philosophy. It was like, if I want to do a post, I let it sit. I don't have to sit there and scroll for the next 3 to 4 hours.
Posting ghost.
Right?
I like it. Posting ghost. Cool. No, I think you hit a couple great points with social media. I believe that you are what you consume, right? And whether that's food, whether that's knowledge, news, what you watch, what you hear, what you see, right? I mean, that's just a reality. Who you hang out with, right? Yes. We all heard the cliche, you are the 5 homies you chill with, right?
Truth.
Or something like that. But probably not in those terms. But,
I like it.
At the end of the day, I think for me, and dude, I remember doing this, let me think. 2014, I downloaded Instagram for the first time. I was never on social. I only got a Facebook when I started selling real estate 3.5 years ago. And I remember looking at social media in my feed and it was just all hot chicks. And I was like, I'm never going to...
Why am I following all these people?
This is like fucking porn.
Right.
I'm like, what is happening?
Right.
And I remember deleting it.
Right.
And again, a few years later, you get it back. But for me, now, like going through your followers and going through your feed and just deleting and unfollowing people that submit and put out just straight bullshit and garbage has been an amazing way for me to turn and spin looking at social media. And then the other thing that has been amazing for me, and a lot of people don't understand it, is I've removed the addiction to those distractions. And like when you comment or like on anything I have, it doesn't pop up with a notification. It doesn't even show the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the app. I turned off all notifications on my phone. I don't know when people email me. Text that's direct access, right?
Right.
So that's probably the hardest for me. But yeah, like people get pissed. Oh, why didn't you get my email? Sometimes I don't look at email for 9 hours in a day.
Huge. So powerful, right?
Like, again, if you need me, it's a text message is the best way because I will see that more often. But I had to put those constraints on what I was consuming, number 1, and then those distractions, number 2. And to your point, you get lost in this way of social media and it can damage and cripple you. And it can ruin your mindset. And it can make you think less worthy. And that's why I keep saying this, run your own race at your own pace and don't compare, stay in your own lane. Right. I've probably said this for the last 3 weeks, almost in every conversation I've had with someone because it's so important to me. And stay in your own lane is kind of cliche and we forget about it. And it's like, oh, stay in your own lane. But what does that really mean?
Right.
That means if you've got competitors, know what they're doing, but don't watch and follow and copy them because you're going to drive yourself crazy. Oh, they did this. I got to do this. Oh, they're doing this. Oh man, why aren't we doing this? Let me go yell at the team. What blah blah blah. And it's like, dude, be a creator. You're an entrepreneur. Build something out of your mind, not out of the comparison to someone else or your competitor.
You know, on the topic of stay in your lane, I mean, that has sat with me for so long over the past several months, right? As you know, I mentioned earlier about using your job as a vehicle to do what you want in life, right? You need to like your job, but at the end of the day, job is work, right? You're not going to love every single aspect of it. So one thing that I wrestled with when I was making this transition is like, all right, what's the perfect job out there for me that I'm going to wake up and consume my entire livelihood surrounded around this job? And, you know, when I was asking myself that question, I say, okay, well, I like real estate. I really like commercial real estate.
Is there anything you can do that does that, though?
No.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either.
When I narrowed it down, right, it was like, okay.
Sorry, is this what you're getting to?
No,
Did I cut you off?
No, I like you jumping in. Well, you have real estate, and then it's like, okay, I'm really interested in commercial real estate. Let me find a nice work culture, a big company that's growing. Okay, they check all that box. Fantastic. But what does that job do? It allows me to go out and travel. It allows me to write poetry, right? Poetry has been an absolute passion of mine. I write a lot of poetry over the past 8 to 12 months, but I don't have to necessarily find a legal job within poetry, right? You know what I mean? I can always do the side passions, you know, lack of a better term, as I just said, on the side. And if I enjoy real estate, I like real estate enough, I can wake up every day, be fired up about the job. Life is good.
Totally. And I think to your point, there is no perfection in anything we do in our lives. And honestly, that was a huge turning point for me. And honestly, you know where I heard that? The Netflix documentary Stutz.
Oh, love that.
I was like, oh my God. I've always been aligning myself compared to perfection. And I don't know anybody that's perfect, and nothing's perfect.
Right.
So what the hell am I striving for? What am I staying up at night about? What am I killing myself over? What is all the shit I'm doing that I don't want to do?
Right.
I don't support. I don't believe in. I think it's dumb, stupid, a waste of time. Why am I doing any of that?
Right.
Right? Because I was trying to be perfect. And that's what people close to dude, no one's close to perfect. There is no perfect. So it's just crazy once you tweak a little bit of these thought processes and find reality in it. It's like, whoa, man, now I can just go out and do what I want.
It's like
now I can spend way more time throwing events and educating our community and connecting people and helping them and doing all the shit I love.
Yes.
And I can feel great about it because I don't have to be the perfect real estate agent. I've actually realized I don't want to sell as many homes as I've sold previously. It's miserable, and most of the time to get to those numbers, I'm working with really shitty people who I don't like.
Right.
And they just are using me for a transaction and have no respect. They don't care what I do. They don't mind business hours. You know, I tell everybody 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Why are you calling me at 11 o'clock saying you want to see this house tomorrow at 5 p.m.? Why are you texting me after 17 minutes? Did you see the house I sent? Like, you just don't respect me.
Right.
Right? You can't go, you know, Joe and I used to do real estate with, you can't go to Nordstrom's, knock on the door at 9 a.m. when they open at 10 and say, well, yeah, I'm here to buy stuff. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. So why does that work like that in real estate? Because you don't respect me. You don't respect my time. You don't respect my family. And now I take that shit a little bit personal.
It's always...
Because I've let people do that to me. And
Right.
I've let people take time away from my wife and my family. And I'm just not going to do it. And is that going to equate to less houses? You damn right it is. Is that going to equate to Jim Morris being happy? You damn right it is.
Jimbo, you're flowing right now. I've tried to interject what I'm saying. I'm like, I need to stay away from speaking or adding my points because my boy Jimbo is on a roll. I love that. But
I know you feel that way too. And one of the biggest reasons of your transition and where you're going and what you're doing and why you're so excited about it, why you're jazzed about it, is because you do the same thing.
It's always the least important items or to-do items that are your clients reach out to you at off hours, absurdly inappropriate hours, right? It's like somebody texting me at 10 p.m. Hey, what time's closing tomorrow? Right? And they get really upset because this is something that you should have known throughout the entire process.
How many emails
right?
did you not read?
Right. And from our team, exactly.
And it's the same email address for you to sign the documents in the first place, so I know the email address works and it didn't get bounced.
Exactly. And jumping back to your, the plan and the ideal for perfection, I think that's what, how to differentiate between social media and reading a book, because you can go on social media and find your biggest influencer, your public speaker, your author, celebrity, you name it, and they have this incredible highlight reel where you think that they're living on top of the dream. They don't have a negative thought. Life is good and dandy. And friends too. I mean, we're all victims to it. It's a highlight reel. But you read their book and you figure out they're humans too. They think about the same negative thoughts as we do. It's just they've trained their mind year after year of how to shape those negative thoughts.
Totally.
So reading those books consistently, day after day, allowed me to understand I'm not any different than, this multi-million-dollar public speaker who's written several successful books, right? They still think the same thoughts, but they're still out there working.
I think it's just they have fine-tuned what works for them to mitigate the negative and push it out of their brain. I mean, that's really what it is. One of my mentors says the pros don't have feelings. He's like, you think I want to get on this plane? I'm like, dude, it's a private plane. I want to be sitting at home with my wife. You think I want to speak to 750 people and go all out there for 2 hours in the morning? I didn't wake up. I didn't have a good night's sleep.
Right.
Family, whatever, we ate dinner the night before. We didn't have that great of a meal, right? There's all these things. It's like, dude, you're going through all that too, but you have a skill, and that skill is to remove the negative, push the bullshit to the side, show up and perform.
Yes.
Because someone's paying you to do that. And it's not right to them that you let your personal issues come in and take you off of what you've committed to do for that person, especially when they're paying for you, and even more when they're not paying.
Right.
Because most of those situations, and what I've realized over the years as speakers, they actually go and speak because they believe in what you're doing and they want to help people, and they do it for free. So whether they're getting paid or they're not, they still are going to show up as a professional and go and crush it.
Yes.
But I mean, that was one of the biggest revelations I had, because we put these people on a pedestal. And the fact of the matter is, dude, they're hiding a lot of scars and battle wounds. They're just hiding them a lot better than someone like you and I,
right?
Because they're controlling the emotion.
Yes.
And they're pushing out those negative feelings.
Well, and that's, one of the favorite things that I love about the nonfiction personal development books is that's what I enjoy reading the most, of like how people, think that, as I just touched on, right, is that they have a negative thought and how they shape that negative thought. Not saying, you have to be positive all the time. You have to get up every morning at 4 a.m. and just conquer the day. Great ideals, but that's not reality, right? Our mind's going to wake up and say, nah, press the snooze button for 10 more minutes, press the snooze button for 30 minutes. And we all do it all the time. But, they've trained themselves. And now I'm thinking, all right, if they can do it, if they took the time, then I can do it too. But if 100%. I know I wake up tomorrow, with absolutely no desire or no goal-setting mentality to crush the day, that's okay. Take a step back, take a deep breath. That's normal.
Yeah.
Let's get up. Let's go have a drink of water. Let's take the pre-workout.
My wife's cousin yesterday was just saying how she got into similar, like that I was talking about. We were chatting about how I kind of got lost and, had to find myself of why I was doing a lot of things I was doing. And she was talking about, I don't want to wholesale my product because there's not much margin. And it was like, no, you need to get that product to people because you're helping people with that product.
Yes.
And it was like this light bulb went off. And I just think that sometimes we go into those situations and we just need one little tweak, man. One little thing. I mean, she texted me the next morning, thanks so much for that conversation and this and that. And to me, it was just a conversation. To her, it was like she now has a path to go down and do the right thing and the whole reason why she was doing it. But we get lost with the stressors of money, responsibility,
Right.
Bills, comparisons to others, and it's like, again, you're doing it
Well,
for you at your pace.
one of the things that I loved about you is when you got vulnerable on social media, right? Because, man, I tell you what.
The Boston guy getting vulnerable on
Yeah,
social
I know,
media took
but-
a lot of therapy.
Well, and that's the thing is like we can have that highlight reel. We want to post things that we sound good, we sound clear, we sound crisp. It's going to get a lot of likes. It's going to get a lot of views. But, when you put something out like that, sure, you're going to have your haters say, oh, why is he doing this? Why is he admitting to being sad? I would never post that. I would never post that. But all it takes is that one person, maybe it's two, maybe it's three, maybe four, to say, hey, thank you for that. That really resonated with me. I'm going through something very difficult over the past 6 months. And that makes your day, your night, your week so much better versus letting the 10, 20 plus negative comments affect your life. And so when you did that, I was just like, you know what? Amazing for somebody to be vulnerable like that. And it's hard to do nowadays, let alone in a conversation, but on social media that gets portrayed to the world.
It is. And I think for me specifically, I always had that position of like, oh, then someone's going to see weakness. And how do you mask your weakness so that way you're not putting yourself out there to take advantage of?
Right.
But once you get taken advantage of, then you start fine-tuning and understanding, okay, this person and how they're acting and their character associates with this person that I know from 10 years ago that did this bad thing, so I'm just going to separate from it. And you're just fine-tuning how you read people
Right.
to remove that risk, opposed to going out there and hanging and spending time with those people who chop it up and kill you and crush you for your vulnerability.
Right. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes it's people that you think are the closest in your life that don't have your back.
Social media is so crazy to the point where I met my buddy this morning, entrepreneur, super smart guy. He's going to sell his business for millions in the next 5 years. He already started a business and whatever, and has someone else runs it, but he makes a good profit off it. So the guy's just amazing, great guy. And, he's like, man, your video the other day was great. And I was like, bro, you going to throw a like or a comment?
I know.
And he's like, I'm so bad at this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just joking. But like,
Right.
think about the level of support when you like something. Because I was so bad at this too. I'll consume, be like, that was dope. Next, that was dope.
Sure.
And it's like, so you on the other end are going, man, I put this out and I didn't get a bunch of likes and I really thought this content was great. And the reality is 2,000 people saw it. 1,800 thought it was really great.
Right.
And 4 decided to hit a little fucking button that had a heart on it.
It's so
And it
true.
completely fucks up your whole brain.
I know,
'Cause
and that's
you're
how
like,
you think how successful it was. You're like, oh, 4 people liked it. Now I guess I might as well delete it because it's not good content. I need to try it
The
again.
only way I got through that is because I meet with so many people. And every
Right.
meeting I have now, they bring up a video I dropped.
It's amazing.
And I'm like, I didn't even think you were paying attention.
Sure.
I don't even know the video you're
Right.
talking about because I'm dropping so much.
Right.
And we've got the team who helps and all that,
They might not like it, but they see it.
So it's
And they
just
see
it's
it.
just interesting, and
Right.
I wanted to bring that up because 1, I just had that conversation this morning. 2, I used to do that a lot, and then 3, we're talking about social media and all the
Right.
situations and how this could happen and that. So it's just super interesting to me, and I think more of like the future and, the new app coming out, Clapper, if TikTok gets banned and all these things happening. And I'm like, man, what's the psychological pressure? What's the changes that are going to occur with new features and new ways to bring in audiences? And it's just crazy,
Right.
And I do have the belief that TikTok has fake views.
Oh,
I think it's all bullshit.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting.
It's just to keep you on the platform longer.
They know the algorithms and they know what they're doing because when I logged back on to post a story, a few weeks ago for the first time, it got hundreds and hundreds, maybe 1,000 views on Instagram stories. So what does that do to your normal person, including myself? Dopamine rush. I got to get back on social media. I better start posting again. But they do that intently to get you to say, hey, oh, I missed this. I need to get back on. I need to get that dopamine rush. I mean, that's why they generate so much money. It's crazy.
That's some real shit right
right?
there. I swear.
And I saw it firsthand.
Yeah.
But it's like, back to our comment about drinking alcohol, right? Is we're not necessarily saying I'm going to give up alcohol for the rest of my life, but I may go through a phase where I give it up for a month, 2 months, 1 week. It's just like social media. I took 4 months off of it, and I thought for a second, maybe I'll delete, Instagram forever. But I know the value of social media, and if I can use it in a healthy manner, that's all that matters. I don't have to sit there and consume it all day, although it's available for me all day. I can use it wisely in a manner that works best for me and my schedule.
You're right. It's crazy to me that I think a lot of people realize what you just realized and just skip right over it and just keep posting and then get addicted and realize how much time they've spent on it. You know?
And it's also the ones that are on social media the most are the ones that aren't posting. Have you noticed? Like you see people that view your stories or people that are always sending you the memes. You look at their last post, it was like 2020, right? And sure, there's no judgment because that's what they decide to do. If they are strictly on there to consume, friends and family's content, that's one thing. But it's just interesting to see that, right? It's just like, all right, well, if that person's on social media, then they must be posting, they must be engaging with other people's content. But at the same time, they're just maybe going on. Maybe they're a lot healthier than us, and they just sign and say, you know what, I haven't posted ever, and I'm just going to go see how happy everybody is, and I'm going to turn it off and say, you know what, I'm happy for everybody.
I hope that's the case. I highly doubt it. I think it's people who don't want to be vulnerable, people who don't think they're credible to post, people who don't think they're interesting enough. And I think that's a psychology that's crippling a lot of people.
Right.
It's funny. You talked about the post and ghost. Now we're talking about just the ghost.
Yes, right? And that's,
man, we got to put together all these genres of social media people and get a podcast just about that.
Oh,
we'll dress up and act like them and do skits.
And it's just because it's so relatable.
So what are you? How do you label yourself in social media? Now you got me thinking what cohort or pocket do I put Jim in when it comes to social media?
I am doing my best now to be the post and ghoster. And that's what I've been doing since I got back on a month ago, right? It's, I posted 2 videos, one with Jake's podcast and another about multi-use properties and commercial real estate. The moment I post, I deleted the app because I know with my addictive personality, if the app's still there, I might click it to see how it's doing. But deleting the app for 7-8 hours or deleting the app all into the night until maybe noon the next day was so healthy. Now, previous 5.5 to 6 year Brad was not the best at that, right? I always had it on my phone and it distracted me from the office work. It distracted me from closings because if I'm making multiple posts a day, I'm constantly on it, making sure that people are engaging with it. Then I'm sharing it to my story. Then I'm making sure to see who's DMing me based on that video. Is it going to turn into profitability down the road? And you look at the screen time and it's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours again. And I get home at night and I'm just exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm not exhausted because I ran miles and did a crazy boxing workout at the gym or had 5 closings. No, I'm exhausted because of all the mental stimulus that I consumed in my head from being on Instagram. And then you add in Facebook and then you add in LinkedIn. I mean, it's just a mess waiting to happen. What about you?
I don't know what cohort I'd put myself in or what to title it, but I believe that you need separation. I've got friends who their wife has the code. There's an app that you can't open Instagram unless you put a code in, and they have each other's codes. So you have to go to your wife and say, "Babe, I know I'm not supposed to be on Instagram, but will you give me the code today?"
That's awesome.
And you're never going to do that because that's fucking embarrassing.
Right.
I'm addicted to social media, babe.
Yes,
give me the code. You're not going to do that, right? But I think for me, I look at it differently. And I probably just, honestly, last week, I really put myself in how I position this. 10 years ago, as an entrepreneur, business owner, you would hire an advertising company. They would create the ad and they would market the ad and post it and do everything, and they give you analytics, and they come back to you, and you'd work with your marketing and sales team and understand conversion rates and what the investment was and the return on the investment, and if it's ad spend or whatever, right? ROAS, return on ad spend. And now we're just in a phase of life for a lot of entrepreneurs where you're not outsourcing that advertising company to the professional. You're doing it all yourself. So you're forcing yourself to acquire a skill of advertising when that's not your unique ability in your organization, which in fact is distracting and takes time away from you performing at your highest level, doing your highest activity that you're the best at. Right? Like, for me, I'm not the best at social media. A lot of people think I am. I have a team. It costs a lot of money. Some people think I'm crazy when I tell them how much money I spend. Some people are like, dude, double down, baby. You're going to the top, right? And it's interesting because if you look at every single person at a high level, whether they're a solopreneur, meaning they're a coach or a real estate agent or a mortgage lender, right? Someone who's entrepreneurial, that just they perform and to receive the benefit. Or you look at companies. Those people at those high levels, they're not creating the content. They're not posting. They have people around them, photographers, videographers, copywriters. They have a team of marketing. So it's just interesting as we navigate through the 2020s, and we're in 23 now, I think people are looking at it wrong. For me to go and spend that much time to produce what I'm producing, I won't get anything done that is revenue producing. Right. That is my actual unique ability to perform at the highest level for Jim Morris and what Jim Morris's companies or solopreneur business is doing. And it's just amazing to me because we're just piling on these things onto the entrepreneur and they wonder why it's not working. Dude, you're not the expert. You don't know how to advertise. You don't know how to position the copywriting on your caption for someone to read it. Right? You don't know lighting. You don't know angles. And again, a lot of people are putting out great content, and that's amazing, but they're spending all their time and energy doing something that's not their top line skill.
That was me. Just like I made the reference that, in the legal world, the best place to put me would not be in a back room surrounded by desks and chairs and empty office space to review a document 8 to 9 hours a day. You and I are on the same similar breed, is that our best time is not sit with our heads down, staring at our phone, coming up with Instagram captions and hashtags. No, we need to be out and about. We need to be socializing. We need to be in front of the camera, right? Speaking, or in front of the computer writing for a specific purpose, not scrolling Instagram and coming up with hashtags because I still hate coming up with captions.
And if you ask my team, and we just brought on a marketing company for the conference at the end of the year, like, I'll be the first to tell you, I can't create a graphic. I can look at a frickin' graphic and not realize that it's 3 different fonts. Like, I'm the worst. I don't know how to edit and splice and add captions and all this stuff, right? But I know what I don't know. And it takes too much time away from me to go and learn that, do it, and then what happens? We talked about the hustling culture we're in, right? It creates burnout because you can't just do those things and expect to make money. You got to do the revenue producing things. So now you're taking on 2 major roles, and you're probably taking on 5 if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like, you're the CEO, the COO, you're the visionary, you're the CM, you do all your marketing, CMO, you do, all your operating and hiring. You can't do that.
Right.
You burn out. And I think that's where it's the who, not how approach of who can I put on my team that has the same core values, the same culture, the same goals, but they are a pro in this sector. I'm a pro in this sector, and we collaborate and the business grows together.
Yes.
And for me specifically, it's a lot of time to do what we're doing right now. And I'm just showing up and performing.
Right.
Imagine if I had to show up, perform, and then do all the back end. you know? And it's like, you've got to find these partnerships and these people that you're aligned with, and you have those synergies to make it truly be you.
Right.
Like the team behind the camera right now, they understand me. We have life conversations. They know who I am. We were talking earlier about a situation that happened to me 5 years ago, and they're like, Jim, you never told us about this. What the hell? They were like upset, right? Because we're that close and they understand me. So when I go and shoot content that's true and natural to me, they understand what my audience is, who I want it to go to, who I'm trying to resonate and speak with. And they know that I want it to be authentic. And yes, we're going to mess up, and I'm not perfect, and I'm not in TV biz and know how to get on cameras and do this. So there'll be some stuff that we cut out or we edit. But I mean, you heard them today. We're not going to edit all the little mistakes because this is real. This isn't just a bullshit picture. Like, this isn't a movie we shot over 6 months, 12 months. This is a real raw conversation two buddies are having that met 2 years ago.
Think about the first time you ever shot a video or did a podcast. I remember my brother and I did a podcast, and the first episode, you know, I went back to him and I said, you have to edit that portion. I said, I stuttered, I hesitated, and I could not stand my own voice. But what happens over time? You get used to it. Then you listen to the professionals. You watch the professionals, and they stutter sometimes. They pause. They say They say like. But that doesn't stop them from putting out good content. Yes, there are some rare breeds in the world that are just the best speakers in the entire world, but don't compare yourself to them.
And they practice. And they practice
Over
and
and
practice and practice. Michael Burt, you know, I'm like, man, he does all these things with the tonality, and he gets low on this, and I'm watching all these unique things. I'm like, man, how come I didn't think of that? And I'm like, dude's been doing this for 31 years.
Right.
I've been speaking on stage for 2.
Right.
Not even. The first year was just me at my own events and not really trying to speak and not really learning and engaging.
Right.
I've been really doing this for 6 months, actually educating on how to be a great speaker. So it's just funny. Again, you compare yourself.
Well,
you know?
here's another compliment to you, Jimbo. You know, when I got off social media, or even when we first did our video, right? You're always a good speaker, right? But the amount of improvement from that Kindness is King video all the way to when I turned back my Instagram on, you were this whole new breed. I remember I texted Brenda. I was like, who is this Jimbo? You know, I was like, who is this guy?
You're making me blush.
Just absolutely owning the microphone and owning the camera. And what did you do to get to that stage? You just got your reps in. They weren't all perfect, but you got your reps in.
I also partnered with the people shooting this podcast.
There you go.
There's a lot of coaching that goes in to someone who has shot a lot of video, worked with a lot of different people and personalities. And the fact of the matter is, again, who, not how.
Right.
They helped me get better on camera, right? We were just talking about placement. Dude, I used to have conversations over
right
here,
over the
and
mic.
the freaking mic's over there.
Yes.
Like, let's just be realistic.
Right.
Last week, dude, I shot the whole podcast like this, right? Like, there's reality in this.
Yes.
And oh shit, don't let me fuck this up again.
You jinx yourself.
But there's reality in this, right? And there's humility in it. And I think if you allow yourself to be embarrassed and to not grow and to just stop doing things, then you're not going to see the growth because you got to mess up. Dude, I've been doing this. We're chatting again right before this. We're talking about, man, how long have we been doing this together? And, you know, yada, yada, yada. And we're like, oh, was it 8 months? Coming up on a year? And it's like, man, if I look back a year ago, it's like that's a completely different human.
Right.
And it's really just through practice and committing to something and aligning yourself with the right people who want to see you grow, want to see you prosper, and will give you the honest, true feedback. You know, 6 months ago, I did an event, and someone was like, Jim, you're surrounded with all these great people that support you and love you, but I'm going to give you some harsh truth. And they dug deep into my character about something I said and how I acted. And I was like, man, after this, I'm like, I was mad, but I was like, no, I'm not mad. This is what I need. I don't need people patting me on the ass in life. I need people saying, dude, that was really good, and I love you, brother, but you got to fix this, this, and this, because I know you want to get here,
right,
and you've got to do these things better, and this wasn't great.
Right.
And those are the people that I want to be around because there's truth, there's reality, there's vulnerability, and there's actually I know they care about me.
Right? That feedback portion is so important.
So important.
Especially when you're around folks that, have seen people speak. They've edited content for years. To take a piece of advice, you don't need to take it personal. Right. Because, folks, our video production crew, they've coached people probably a lot better speakers and have done this a lot longer than you and I. So if they say something to me, I'm not going to take it with a grain of salt. Right. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to say, okay, that's a great strategy. And we even had that instant earlier. Right. You guys framed a certain topic in a different way that felt comfortable to me. Right. The way I originally said in the beginning, I didn't want to speak about that, right? But the way that you guys framed it and said, hey, how about you go this direction? It made it magic.
Cool, man. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
baby.
it. There was one thing I wanted to bring up, and it just escaped my mind. What the hell was it?
Ask me how I got into commercial real estate.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yes.
We got to talk more about commercial real estate.
Yes.
So let's definitely go there. Let's hear your story about how you got started. But I wanna one up that question.
Okay.
So after you talk about how you got started, I want to hear why you're not gonna stop in commercial real estate.
Ooh.
What's propelling you for the future?
Okay. So, growing up, I played travel basketball day in and day out.
You must have got caught for not being tall enough. Huh?
I didn't hit my big growth spurt until sophomore year of high school, but needless to say, I was still tall. Now, growing up playing AAU basketball since the age of 8 years old, we traveled all around the country playing in very unique megaplex gymnasiums. And these gymnasiums had 5 to 10 full-length basketball courts. They had pools. They had workout facilities. They had office space. They had restaurants. And I remember playing and walking into these gymnasiums so fascinated by how they were set up. 20, 30 years down the road, I realized these are called multi-use buildings. Now, at the time, at 8, 9, 10, and into high school, I didn't have my real estate creative brain, so I wasn't thinking about, how was this building designed? What was the architecture behind it? Who were the engineers on the project?
Hold on, wait. In high school, you weren't taught about real estate?
I know.
Shocker.
I know, right?
The American dream. Buy a house, but let's not teach you. Okay.
Right.
We're not going to go there, but I am going to go there in a different episode. But anyways.
And the more I played in these gyms, the more I always had in the back of my mind. And, growing up, my pops was a real estate attorney. He focused solely on residential and did title and closings. But I saw the way he interacted with clients, right? I saw some of the blueprints of some of these houses that his clients were purchasing. And he wasn't the one to necessarily come home stressed about a client that, just got sued for a civil liability or got a DUI or was murdered or any of those criminal law cases. And I'm always so impressed by folks in the criminal law space that can handle that grind day in and day out. And seeing him in real estate, seeing that he was always generally, don't get me wrong, you and I both know that real estate can be quite stressful.
It is.
But for the most part, you can come home with a smile on your face. And I saw that he did that. So I told myself when I go to law school, I want to do what Pops did. And I took that a step further and fell in love with commercial real estate. And that was one of the reasons why I made this transition to begin with, because I wanted to get into commercial real estate and focus solely on it.
Man, it's awesome. I mean,
Thanks, man.
8 years old. How old are you?
33.
So me too. Great number. Larry Bird, baby.
Jesus.
At 8, you realized your passion towards this. In your 20s, early 30s, you realized you weren't doing it. Now you're 33 and you're full on doing it. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, at what point did you say, why am I in residential or in your hybrid approach? Because I know, because I walked in your office and you were doing a huge commercial deal.
Right.
Like the second day there. And I was like, oh man, this dude does commercial?
Right.
And it was a big one. I'm not going to go into details. It's not my property, but it was a big one. And there's a lot of people in that room. So what, I guess, changed? What flip switch that you weren't doing commercial and that's what you really wanted to do?
Well, I think it was twofold. Seeing my dad ran a title company for 30 to 35 years. And, the residential world it's very cyclical, but it's very emotional, right? And as a psychology major, don't get me wrong, I know how to handle emotions. I can even handle, to the best I can, my own emotions. Now, commercial is a lot more, let's get the deal done, right? So I think I have an advantage by being a lot more emotional intelligent than some of the commercial real estate professionals in the industry. So I can add that added value. Now, it was about a couple years ago, I invested in a commercial property out in Chattanooga. And there was something so cool and sexy about driving by that building and saying, hey, I own a portion of that. And I think that's something different than what you can do in residential, at least from the legal side, is saying, hey, I had a hand in closing and the build process from acquisition to development to construction to leasing out. And I can walk by that building and say I had a stake in that property, whether I invested in it or I helped closed it. So the more I did commercial, and working for a small firm, a lot of your time gets sucked on residential deals. So I didn't have the bandwidth to focus on the commercial deals that I wanted, and I didn't have the bandwidth to go out and do business development in the commercial real estate world. So I said, I loved my experience in the residential world, but I think I need to put all my eggs in this basket and focus solely on this. So I see myself in the commercial real estate world for the foreseeable future.
Love it.
I'm fired up about it.
How are you going to continue to bring that passion?
You're
33. You're going to be doing this for a while, man.
Right. Well, the thing is, commercial real estate, you can open up so many different avenues, right? Whether that's being in-house with a big real estate developer. It could be I become a developer. I could be in the construction world, right? There's so many different avenues in real estate, or focus my attention on strictly investing, that, regardless of whether I want to practice law for the rest of my life,
you're going to be around
I'm going to be around
estate.
Commercial real estate because it's also something that I know and I enjoy doing. So it's nothing that I'm going to surround myself with 24/7, right? But I love it enough that I can focus 100% of my attention on it through my day-to-day job, right? Give my full. You made a comment about that too. If I'm, giving it 50%, giving it 60%, and people are paying me money to work and come to, full throttle, full energy, my full presence, and I'm not giving them each and every day, then I'm not doing my job. Totally. I'm not fulfilling my daily duty to do my best every single day. So being able to have that confidence to go in there and understand, all right, well, my day is not going to last until midnight. I'm going to have some time to do whatever else I want to do. But during this time, I'm going to give it my all. So to sum up what you're saying, I would love to be involved in commercial real estate and residential real estate for the rest of my life.
Love it.
What about you? Where do you see yourself in the real estate world?
Yeah. I think for me, there's just such a passion to go and negotiate and win and put a smile on someone's face in the residential world. But honestly, there's a ton of emotion, and that is a lot to wear. You go from, hey, this is the best asset for you to purchase and what you're trying to do. And you know how my thing is, right? A plan for your future. I want to have those conversations with people to really understand if my recommendation as your professional aligns with your future goals.
Right.
So I do dive deep into that. But then you get into these situations where it's emotional and there's other influences. And I totally appreciate other influences, but the thing I don't appreciate is those influences provide misinformation and incorrect situations and scenarios.
Yes.
And then there's the emotion, and then there's family involved and parents. And again, that's all great if that information is accurate. 90% of the time, it's not accurate because they're not a professional. And mom or dad bought a home 18 years ago.
Right.
A lot's changed in 18
Right.
years. A lot's changed since COVID, right? But, so for me, I love real estate. I love negotiation. I love winning. And I think that there is a great opportunity to help people close to me in my circle that I want to help.
Right.
So
Love that.
real estate's never going anywhere for me. Now, Will I transact 50 houses a year? Probably not. I don't think I want to. I've got a couple developments coming up this year, so I'm going to have some cash to go and redistribute that.
Let's go.
We've got the multifamily project that, Nick and I are working on. So to your point, I have my hands in so many different things. I house hack, I Airbnb, I've got a long-term rental. I mean, I've really put my hand in all these different asset classes and situations and scenarios in real estate. And I'm just trying to figure out, once these investments come back, how much time I want to spend on those and what specific investments.
Right.
But yeah, I'll transact real estate forever, because I never want what happened to me when I bought my house. I just lucked out by buying a good asset. And a lot of people don't luck out. And when I was learning and watching real estate agents and people on my team, they're pushing people to sell stuff that wasn't the best opportunity or situation for that person. So
Right.
I can't never walk away from that, although it is stressful and emotional, because I love it and I want to help people that I like.
Yes.
So I'll never walk away from transacting
Right.
until the day I die,
Right.
because I have a big circle of people I love and they love me.
That's got to feel so good to, let's say you're full-time on the road doing speaking engagements, and, a close buddy of yours that you grew up with is like, hey, I want to buy a house in Nashville, Jim, right? You're busy as can be. Sure, if that was somebody from Instagram, you might refer it to a referral partner. But I know you, and you would give it your all to make sure they got the Jimbo experience from start to finish.
So again, the gentleman this morning, my buddy that I hung out with, his father-in-law, very wealthy guy, wanted to buy a house, and he had a relationship with a different realtor, and she passed him off. And you can't do that for people that are that close to you. And I get it, the whole team approach, and you sit up here, you get the leads, and everybody does the work. But I'm never going to be that person. I'm always going to be entrenched in the situation, especially if there's a personal relationship.
Right.
So it's funny. He was like, "So like, what would you do? Would you pass this person off?" And I was like, "I wouldn't take a client until I closed I closed that person."
That's awesome.
Because there's a reality in it, and they're looking for something very unique at a high dollar value,
Right.
and I'm going to make a lot of money. Why would I take other clients and not align my focus to that?
Right.
Because
Yes.
I know what I want, and I know how I want to serve people, and a lot of real estate agents are just take anything they can and grab money and deplete their brand and deplete their inner circle. He's in my inner circle. I'm going to take care of his father-in-law, and I'm not going to take other clients. So again, back to your original question, real estate always has a place in my heart. I love serving the community, and I love protecting and helping people. I just don't want to do it at the volume I've done it the last couple of years, because I really want to bring everything I can to the table and show up and perform at a high level for my clients. And I was in situations over the last couple of years where I wasn't performing for anybody because I was too pulled apart.
Right.
I mean, closing 11 deals in 1 month, being a real estate agent for a year. You think I serviced those people the best of my ability?
You can't. It's
I didn't,
impossible.
but I was on the wrong team doing the wrong thing with the wrong people.
Right.
It takes time to realize that and gain that experience.
Yes.
So, yeah, man, that's my journey. That's where I'm going with real estate.
The real question is, when is the Brad and Jimbo real estate empire gonna begin? Come on,
TBD.
baby.
Stay
Come
tuned,
on,
baby. Stay tuned.
I'm ready for it.
Let's go.
I'm ready for it.
Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate you spending time today.
Of course.
How do people find you? Anything you want to share before we wrap up? And
Well, now that I'm back on the social medias, you can find me on Instagram at Brad_Bald, BALD, and on LinkedIn. Just search Brad Bald.
cool. Thanks for
Boom.
coming,
Of
brother.
course. Thanks for having me.
Boom.